Okay, welcome, Shabbat Shalom. I, of course, as always, am so excited to be here with you all. Thank you for allowing me to have a break last week. We went camping. It was really fun. We camped for almost a week, I guess, and we went to the mountains. I went horseback riding. It was a nice break. I needed it. But now we're back. This week, we're going to talk about judges and the order of the judgments. And it's very, very fascinating to go through this right now because there's this uprising of the Catholic Church and then this uprising of Judaism happening kind of at the same time simultaneously. And my heart on it is that we have to be really, really careful that we know what the word says, because I think there's going to be people going off in different directions and they're going to be confused. And every time I see people going off in these random directions, it's because they don't really know the word that well. And they're just being led into different stuff. So keep that in mind in the days to come. You know, how are we going to spot a false Christ, a false Messiah? The false Messiah will do away with the commandments, likely. Will tell us that we don't need to do the commandments. Look into the Noahide laws as well. I think there's kind of something in the works with the Noahide and the Catholic joining together. I think there might be something in the works there. I'm not sure exactly how it's all going to play out, but if you know about the Noahide laws and the implication of the Noahide laws, that's important to understand. Torah family on YouTube. Torah family on YouTube has a really good video on the Noahide laws. He breaks it down and the problems with it. And he has screenshots from previous websites that have now been removed in regards to the implications for believers who want to keep the Sabbath and keep the commands of God with the Noahide laws, okay? There are implications to that. And the reason I'm talking about this is because it is a big part of the study today. We're going to go through the implementation of judges, and then we're going to go into what is really fascinating is the prophet portion. Okay, so these portions were designed by, they were a tradition of the Jews, okay? So the portions have been separated by the rabbis, okay? The Orthodox rabbis. We have added in the website that I use, which I do not endorse, by the way. I use this website because it has a really easy ability for me to read, and I don't have to read everything. I do use First Fruits of Zion website to do the readings, but I do not endorse a lot of what they say on their website. They're very Talmud. They promote the Talmud a lot. And you guys know I don't do that. I look at the Talmud. So the Talmud, if you guys don't know, is Jewish, right? It's like kind of the compilation of Jewish thought from different people into one place. Okay. So it's kind of like if you go to the Christian bookstore, you're going to have stuff from Joel Osteen, you're going to have stuff from this guy, stuff from that guy. Not all of it is good. Not all of it is something that you want to ingest. Maybe there is some good insights there. There is some beautiful things in there, but there's also some things that are not so, not something that you would want to take on yourself, right? So I look at it kind of from that angle personally. It is interesting as a reference, but what First Fruits of Zion does is they kind of are pushing this week, especially they put out a video kind of pushing that we should be looking to the Talmud and all that. And I don't think so, you guys. Most people don't even know the Torah. So why would you be adding in extra stuff if you don't even know the Torah, right? It's the same thing. This is my personal take on it. It's the same thing when people are spending all their time studying Enoch and Jasher and Jubilees, and they don't even know the Torah. They don't study the Torah, but they're off doing all these random books and stuff. That I think is a grave error. We have to have a good foundation. The foundation of everything is the first 5 books, right? You shouldn't even be studying Paul's letters until you know the Torah, straight up. He even says that in his letters. Romans 7:1, he says, this is written to the people who already know the law, right? Start with knowing the Torah first, and then start to go into the prophets and the gospels and the revelation, right? Then once you're really solid and you have your faith solid, then go read Enoch, do whatever you want, because you have that solid filter in place. If you don't have that solid filter in place, you're going to be over there, here on this doctrine, over there on that doctrine. You're going to be all over the place, right? If you're reading Talmud and you don't know the Torah, you're going to be all over the place. If you're reading random Christian books from the Christian bookstore and you don't know the scriptures, you're going to be all over the place. You don't have a foundation. You don't have any roots, right? You're going to be, every whim of doctrine is going to take you all over the place, right? So you have to have the root, which is the Torah. You got to know the Torah. That's your root, okay? So what is really, really interesting, which I find fascinating, is, like I said, the rabbis made these Torah portions. This is a tradition of Judaism, right? But we're going to go through Isaiah 52, and they stop the reading. If you've been with me for a while, you know that I don't stop the readings where they stop the readings, because I always find it really fascinating how certain things are left out. So they do Isaiah 51 and 52, and they stop right before so if you guys don't know, Isaiah 53, the revelation of Isaiah 53, which a lot of Christians say is Yeshua, that starts in 52. It starts in 52 and then carries on into 53. So they stop the Torah portion right before that. So when they're reading this in the synagogues, they're purposefully stopping right before that section that most Christians use to point to Yeshua, okay? I find that fascinating. Do with that what you will, right? What it also is really fascinating is this is the Torah portion, Deuteronomy 16, is where the rabbis say, Orthodox rabbis say, that their authority comes from. They say from this Torah portion, they talk about this is where their authority comes from. So I don't know if you guys can see that picture. They're saying, okay, so here, Deuteronomy 16, this is where our authority comes from. You have to listen to us. We can add commands. We can do whatever. We can tell you how to do the commands, right? Putting their covering over you. And this is what this all comes down to. It always comes down to putting a layer between you and the Most High, being your covering, having that authority over you. It's always come down to this. Why does the Catholic Church move the Sabbath day? They're moving the Sabbath day to assert their dominance over you, right? Why do the Pharisees or the Sadducees or whoever add all these extra commands? To assert their authority over you. You can't go to the Most High anymore. You need to go to them. You can't study the word for yourself anymore. You need to go to them. They have secret knowledge, right? So be aware of that, right? And so this is so fascinating, this Torah portion, because you have this picture of these are the judges. This is how you do the judges, blah, blah. And then you have Isaiah 51 and 52, but we're going to leave out 53, right? We're not going to recognize 53. So I find just the whole setup of this, you know that Yah's hand is in it. You know that Yah's hand is in it when you see stuff like this and the way that it all plays out. It's quite amazing. So again, I do not endorse First Fruits of Zion, all their stuff. I use their website because it's a really easy tool for me to use. So I just want to put that out there because there is a lot of stuff I really disagree with. And I'm going to try to find another website to use, but for now, this works. Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you, Yehovah. Thank you for just walking with us as we seek you. Just thank you for bringing us all together. We just glorify your holy name. We glorify your Sabbath day and how you give us so much rest on this day, that you just meet with us in such a powerful way. I just want to thank you for everyone that comes here every week to listen to me try to explain what you are trying to say to your people. It's very humbling. I find it a very special time. And I pray, Father, that you will just give us ears to hear and eyes to see all the wonderful things that are in your word. I pray that you will remove scales from our eyes and ears, that we will always see your heart in the matter, that we're not going to see our flesh, that we're not going to put our own doctrines on things, but we're going to try to find out what your heart wants and what your mind wants and why you are saying certain things. Help us to be humble. Help us to be meek. Help us to be peacemakers. I pray, Father, over everyone who has Masonic lineage. I just pray, Father, that you break off those bonds. And I just pray, Father, that you cancel every single Masonic bond and yoke that has been put on the people through their lineage. I just want to, through the blood of Yeshua, just ask that you cleanse them from those yokes now. I want to pray over the people that they are removed from, that they are removed from anxiety and depression, anything that is kind of got a hold on them. Father, I pray that they're delivered from that now in Yeshua's mighty name. I just want to pray, Father, that you heal all infirmities. I pray that you kill every cancer cell that's within the sound of my voice. I pray, Father, that as we come together and we are renewed by you, that you renew our health, you renew our mind, you renew our finances, you bless us with abundance and clarity. You say in your word that if we walk after you and we seek after you, we walk in your ways, that we will get the blessings of Deuteronomy.28. And I just want to pray over the people that the blessings of Deuteronomy.28 start to unfold dramatically and boldly in their lives now. Healings and more bread than they need, bread to share with others, and just revelations after revelations so that they just can draw so near to you. I pray that you deliver them from every affliction, every battle that they're fighting. You go ahead of us in the battle. You make our path straight. You flatten every high mountain for us as you go ahead in battle for us. And we just pray, Father, that as you go ahead in battle, you make your path clear. You light your path clear to all of us. Anyone who's in confusion about their direction, I pray, Father, that you lift that confusion and just light their path ahead. I want to pray over our children. I pray that our children always know you. I pray that our children seek after you. I pray that our children are not tempted by the things of the world, by the confusions of the world, that they have razor sharp discernment. I pray, Father, that you bless our children with razor sharp discernment, and our future children, our grandchildren, the children that have not even yet been born. Please bless them with a deep knowing of you. I pray, Father, over all the children that are being confused by the certain agenda to confuse them about their identity. I pray, Father, that you restore their identities. I pray, Father, that you move powerfully to restore the identities of the children, that they will have divine encounters with your salvation, Yeshua. I pray, Father, that they will have miraculous encounters with the truth. I pray, Father, that they will stumble across YouTube videos and media that tells them a different side of the story, that tells them the other side of the story, to start to unwind the confusion in their hearts and minds. I just want to pray, Father, for divine encounters for these children who are being confused by this doctrine. Heavenly Father, please bless this study. Help us to seek only you and not add our own flesh into it. And I just pray, Father, that you give us all a joyful heart and your perfect peace. In Yeshua's name, amen. All right. All right, where are we? Okay, Deuteronomy 16, verse 18. So this Torah portion is called Shoftim. It means judges, and so this is the appointment of judges. So obviously Moshe or Aaron or whoever is in charge at any given moment is not able to judge every case. You're going to have smaller cases and bigger cases. And so the appointment of judges is so that, you know, if you have a case or somebody comes to you with a case, something that they need to work out, you know, a disagreement or a legal matter, that you know that could be worked out. And if you don't know the answer, so the judge that's in place, say over your region, doesn't know the answer, then you go up the chain, right? And so yeah, we'll get into the details as we go, but that is the gist of it. So Deuteronomy 16:8.
You shall appoint judges and officers in all your towns that the Lord your God is giving you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not pervert justice. You shall not show partiality, and you shall not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of the righteous. Justice and only justice you shall follow, that you may live and inherit the land that the Lord your God is giving you.
Okay, so much just in there, but seeking after justice and not taking a bribe. I've talked about partiality quite a bit. Partiality, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I'll just go over it quick. Partiality is when you have a certain affiliation or whatever. And it's interesting. We were talking about the Masonic stuff this morning. So the Masons have secret symbols and handshakes and whatever, so that they know if you go into a courtroom. So say you go into a courtroom, and you do this certain signal, the other people, people in the jury, the judge or whatever, they will know that you are part of the group, and they have an affiliation, and they have made vows to support you, to be in your favor. And it's this, because they're in this little group, this little club, not so little anymore. That's how they subvert justice. That's how they push, so they would know if this person or this person is part of their little club, right? And they have made vows to have each other's backs, right? And that's why we have such a corrupt system at this point. Like, it's just gotten more and more corrupt over the years, right? Partiality, you can have partiality even from your past experiences. So one area where I see partiality all the time is men and women. So often women, if they've had some sort of trauma or something, they kind of look at all men the same, and they kind of have that, you guys know the conversation that goes around about with men and women. And men, if they've had a lot of rejection from women, will look at situations a certain way. And so we have to be able to understand where our partialities are. And a good thing to do for yourself is to take a moment and write down like where you possibly have partialities. Your partialities will likely be around your traumas, any area where you are having trouble overcoming, finances, relationships, whatever. If you're having trouble overcoming an area and getting freedom and getting blessing in a certain area, you likely have a partiality that you're not looking at. You likely have a trauma that you haven't dealt with, all of that stuff. So that is part of being able to show good judgment, is to be able to not have an agenda, right? There was a pastor on TikTok, and I don't always agree with him, but he has a lot of wise points quite often. And he was saying that, you can tell when a pastor has, I forget the words he used, but you could tell when the pastor has something else going on behind the scenes in his life, when he's really focused on a particular issue. So if you see a pastor or a teacher and they're hyper focused on, women need to submit, or hyper focused on you need to tithe, and you need to give me a tithe, but all that, if they are hyper focused on that, it's likely that they have some sort of personal partiality in that area that they have not dealt with, right? If they're hyper focused on it, right? Not if they're just balanced, like teaching the scriptures on it, but if they're really like, overdoing it every week after week, they're talking about the same thing, right? It means that they have got an issue in that area. So it's a red flag is what I'm saying. Let's look at bribe, because this is a really interesting word. Let's look at bribe. So if you look up bribe, so first of all, if you look up grace, it's a 2-letter word, which means favor. Shen, I might be not pronouncing that correctly, but so grace and favor is this picture of, let me pull it up for you. It's a picture of a gem in an eye. So if you see favor, grace, and elegance, a form or appearance of a woman, of a doe, precious stone of ornaments. And so I was listening to a study on this, and it was from Nehemiah. I'm sure you guys know him, Nehemiah Gordon. He's like a Hebrew scholar, so he talks about the Hebrew a lot, and he was saying that grace is like that picture of having a twinkle in your eye for someone. So when we're thinking about the Heavenly Father looking down on us, it's that picture of like he has a twinkle in his eye for us. He loves us, right? what's interesting is when you look up bribes, it adds a word. So it's the same word and then adds a word or adds a letter. And it's connected. Let me see. So it's connected, but I found this really interesting. And like I said, I don't know Hebrew that well, you guys, but if you look at the word, it's like a shin. So a present is a shin in the front, right? And then if you look at a bribe, it is a like this kind of awkward shin with the two vowel pointers on it, and it's almost like this. I don't know. For me, it's like because the shin is the picture of the Most High, right? It's kind of like this perversion of the Most High. That's just what I see in that, like visually in it, because I always see in pictures. But anyways, I just found that really, really interesting. So shachad. I don't know how to say that. Let me look up at grace again. Shen, favor, grace, charm. Apparently, grace is connected with Noah as well. Do you guys know about that? Noah, knock. Oh, it's okay. So grace. So the two letters in Noah. Okay, so it's not the same letters as bribe. I don't know where I got that from then. Not sure where I got that from then. So Noah is the same two letters as grace, but they're reversed. They're flipped, which is really interesting. Bribe, to pervert justice, hush money, legal compensation. What is the root word of that? Root word is to donate. Well, that's interesting. So a donation. So a donation is also, okay, that is the root. So what's the root of grace? So a donation is also connected to a bribe, which is interesting. I think that could be a positive thing or a negative thing. Like obviously we can donate to a cause, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. But you think about all these donors with the political affiliations and stuff. I find in America, you guys have looser rules around that. Shaman. Huh. Interesting. This is above my pay grade, so I can't figure this out, but that's fine. Graciousness. Sorry, I'm kind of on a journey right now. Chen. There we go. Nem. Favor. To find grace in someone's eyes. So chen, favor, grace, charm. Grace is a moral quality of kindness, displaying a favorable disposition. And to find grace in someone's eyes means to be in a state of favor. Okay, let's go back to the Torah portion. So justice, and only justice you shall follow, that you may live and inherit the land that Yehovah, your Elohim, is giving you. So thinking about that, it's like at any given moment, we can pervert justice. At any given moment, we can twist the matter, or we can want something in our own flesh and twist the matter. And so we're supposed to pursue justice constantly. And if we pursue justice constantly, then we may live and inherit the land, Yehovah. So that pursuit of justice is what helps us to inherit the land. Okay, verse 21, Deuteronomy 16:21.
You shall not plant any tree as an Asherah beside the altar of the Lord your God that you shall make. And you shall not set up a pillar which the Lord your God hates.
So, of course, I have to stop here. Y'all know I have to stop here. So the Asherah is the tree worship that they would do. They would carve the tree, or they would decorate a tree. I don't need to go through that with you guys. Most of you understand the problem with that. Beside the altar. So this is a conversation that I was, people are like, oh, the Christmas tree isn't a problem because it's just a tree. It's not an altar. An altar is connected to a food sacrifice. So if you look up the word for altar, it's connected to having a sacrificial meal. Now, what do you do beside the tree? You eat your sacrificial meal. You have your sacrificial Sabbath day. You do all the things beside the tree. So you will not plant as any tree as an Asherah beside the altar. Okay. Of Yehovah, your Elohim. So you're doing the altar, which is the sacrificial table. You're doing the tree, and then you're making it about your Savior, right? So there's all three elements are a problem there. And I don't know how many times, like he says this so many times, like it's repeated in the scriptures over and over and over again, this exact picture. Like, don't do this. And then you got the whole church doing it with no thought. Like, maybe we should just not, right? Like, maybe we should just let it go. You shall not set up a pillar, which Yehovah your Elohim hates. So the pillars, we've all gone through this. There's pillars everywhere. What are they called? The obelisks? Rome. So Rome has a big one. Rome has, and we'll just do the Roman one and look at that one. Rome has a bunch of them, I guess. 13 obelisks of Rome. 13 of them. That's an interesting number. So they have the main one. They have it in the Vatican, and it's like a giant sundial. They have them in DC. They have them all over the place, right? So he's saying he hates it. He hates these pillars, hates them, right? And so, we know who the harlot is. I feel like I don't want to repeat stuff that I've kind of gone over and over and over week after week, but there's going to be new people here. And then, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back through the weeks, because we've kind of covered a lot of this stuff on repeat because it comes up in scripture on repeat, right? He doesn't like the pillars. They're everywhere. He hates them. The pillars are connected, I think, if I recall correctly, to Tammuz and his hoo-ha. I believe that's what the whole symbology is on them. Apparently, in the Vatican, there's a lot of phallic symbols. From what I've heard, I have not been there. 17:1. Deuteronomy 17.
You shall not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep in which is a blemish, any defect whatever, for that is an abomination to the Lord your God. If there is found among you within any of your towns that the Lord your God is giving you, a man or woman who does what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other gods and worshipped them, or the sun, or the moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have forbidden, and it is told you, and you hear of it, then you shall inquire diligently, and if it is true and certain that such an abomination has been done in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you shall stone that man or woman to death with stones. On the evidence of 2 witnesses or of 3 witnesses, the one who is to die shall be put to death. A person shall not be put to death on the evidence of 1 witness. The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. So you shall purge the evil from your midst.
This is interesting when you look at this section is interesting when you look at the story in the New Testament about Yeshua saving the woman in adultery. The problem with that story, however, and I just don't include it in my arsenal of things that I think about, because It is not, that story of the woman caught in adultery is not actually in the earliest manuscripts. So the earliest, most reliable manuscripts do not have that story of the adulterous woman. So for me, I just kind of leave it out. I believe that there's probably other things that are probably been added over the years, but we do have earlier manuscripts, so we can test things. The other thing that I know for sure that was added, and this is notes in all, it's usually notes. If you buy a Bible, it'll be in the notes in the Bible. But the other thing that was added is, thus Yeshua made all foods clean. That was added. That's not in the manuscripts. That's an addition from the scribes, which is a very, very scary addition, because a lot of Christians have been led astray. That, you know, because, well, first of all, because they don't know what food means biblically, but also that has led them into some really bad theology. Do not worship the sun and the moon and the host of heaven, which I have forbidden. Do I want to get into calendar stuff? Why do I keep a Karaite Jewish calendar, which is spot the moon, count the days, keep the feasts? I have gone through a lot of the calendar debates, and there's people that do the Mazarath and they look at the constellations and they base everything that they're doing on the constellations. Over the years that I have looked at this and thought about it and prayed about it, I have backed out of a lot of that stuff. I believe that we can have signs. I think the eclipse was a warning and a sign, and it's like to give us like, pay attention, right? But I think when we start to be like, oh, we got to look at the heavens to see if the barley is ripe instead of looking at the barley in the spring, I think like there's a fine line there. And for me, I've gone back to like just the simpler. The way that I look at it is, if you were a farmer in Israel and you were only hearing the Torah once a year, right? You were hearing the Torah once a year because you don't read, and you were just going to Jerusalem to hear it once a year. And you would take that back with you, and okay, so like, how do I deal with this? If you're working on your farm, you're feeding your family, you're busy, you don't have time to sit there, you don't even read, to sit there and figure this all out, right? How would you know how to keep the feasts? How would you know how to keep time? You would look to the sky and be like, oh, okay, we got a new moon. Now we know that it's the new month. Oh, the barley's ripe. Okay, now we can gather, we can gather the first fruit sacrifice and the first fruit offering and take it to the town. Each individual farmer and person just working the land and just living their lives would not have access to know all the constellations, would not have access to, having a priest around them all the time. Keep it really meek and simple, I think, is the best way. Keep it really meek and simple. I don't know if I should tell you guys about this. So there's also this kind of debate where people are like, well, the new moon, how do you know what the new moon is? I think the new moon is the full moon, blah, blah, blah. If you look at the Hebrew for the word for new moon, it's this picture of renewing and building. So when you look at the moon, you have this period of it building up into a full moon, right? It's being renewed and repaired and restored into a full moon, okay? And it's a cycle. And so as that moon gets renewed, repaired, and restored, then it's a full moon. And then it diminishes. It has that shedding. It sheds its layers of and becomes diminished, right? When you look at the Hebrew, it does show that picture of the moon. And maybe this is controversial, but my thought on it was, you have women that their cycles link up with the moon. They have a monthly cycle, right? What happens in that monthly cycle? The lining of their uterus starts to grow, and then it becomes full, and then there's no baby made, and then it sheds, right? So that I just offer you that as a way to think about it and a way to kind of see how it all works together in creation. Which kind of takes me back to the reason why I don't keep a lunar Sabbath. I believe that the Sabbath day was preserved through history. I know that through language, worldwide language. I can see that the Sabbath day has been preserved. I know it from testimonies from native tribes that had messengers visit them and tell them to keep the Sabbath, and that Sabbath day that they were told to keep lines up with the seventh day. The other reason that this, like, why I don't think that we should be basing the Sabbath on the moon is because, first of all, I believe it was preserved through history. The other reason is because the sun rules the days, right? And the sun is kind of that masculine picture, right? And then you have the moon, which is moon cycles are a very feminine thing, right? You look through any culture, any history, it's a very feminine energy. You know what I'm saying? I know that sounds hippy dippy, but some of you guys will know what I'm talking about. Women are on a monthly cycle. Women are very seasonal creatures. We love holidays. We love commemorating seasonal things. We love commemorating anniversaries. Women are extremely seasonal. Who does all the decoration and that usually for the feasts? The women, right? Who usually has new moon gatherings? Women. Who usually in the kind of esoteric new age thing, what do women do? They gather on the full moon. Women are just very moon based, okay? And so when you have the Sabbath day, which is supposed to be a very strict structure, and you're letting the moon rule it, I just feel like it's kind of letting the woman lead in a way. I know people will disagree with me, but that's the conclusion that I came to from it. It's like this and it feels very unstable. You know, women need that structure of the men around them, right? They need that stability. Men have a daily cycle, women have a monthly cycle. Men have a daily hormone cycle, women have a monthly hormone. The sun does a daily thing, the moon does a monthly thing, right? And the other case that I make for this, is that when you have this lunar Sabbath cycle, you get these extra days and you get kind of like this kind of adjustment. You have to do this adjustment every day, and it's not a steady cycle. And that unsteadiness feels very feminine to me. It feels very like, because women are kind of like all over the place at times. Like when we're in our, most feminine state, and we feel like, we have men around us that have got things under control, we relax into a very, free flighty way, which is a beautiful way to be. And that's why the two, when you have masculine men and women working together in a perfect harmony, it really is a beautiful thing, right? And so I really feel like letting the moon lead is maybe kind of messing with that a bit, right? And that's why you get these extra days and this confusion. And for me, when I think about like having the instability of having to change my Sabbath day every month, having to have those extra days every month, it creates instability in my thinking. It creates like this unsettled feeling in me personally, because I don't have that structure anymore. And if you look into fractals in the environment and fractals in numbers and mathematical fractals, you could, I don't know how to explain it to you guys, but you could see what I'm talking about, how this would make sense. Okay, I'm just going to leave that there. I know people are not going to agree with me, and I know it sounds, but that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. That's okay. Some of you might be interested in why I do what I do. These are all the processes that I've gone through to get to where I'm at with it all. Okay, so that's where I'm at with it. Years ago, when I started keeping the commandments, I was in a group and I was asking questions. I was kind of trying to figure out all this stuff. And, this group said to me, like the leaders of this group said, like the way that we look at it is, if you were on a desert island, how would you figure this all out? Your heart wants to keep the commands of Yah. How would you figure it all out? You would just do the most easy, natural thing. And so that's I've kind of stuck with that. And I found, like, whenever I go and try to dissect Enoch or try to do this and try to do that, the fruit that develops from that and the attention that goes into that never is good fruit, like really, really good fruit. It's not feeding anybody. It's not healing anybody. It seems to go into this place of like tree of knowledge, like, oh, we've got this special knowledge, we got super secret knowledge. And that, it always kind of breeds pride, right? We're smarter than everybody else because we understand the book of Enoch, and we know it really tends to breed pride. I have not seen good fruit come from it yet. I don't think that, like, those who are keeping the Zadok calendar are wrong. Like, they're convinced, and that's fine. They're convinced. That's great. I would never divide from people, but I have noticed, I want to be careful with my words, just in certain people that really say, if you don't keep this calendar, you're not even saved. All that stuff. It's very prideful. It's very, very prideful. Just the people doing it, and they really truly, that's not prideful. But when they eat from that, sometimes when people eat from all these different trees all the time, they kind of get lost in the sauce, if you know what I'm saying. So we have to be careful to not worship the sun and the moon or the host of heaven, or make it too big of, like, make it overshadow everything else, right? All that stuff comes from Babylon. All the constellation stuff and all that esoteric knowledge comes from Babylon. So we have to be really cautious about getting too involved in that. Where did Daniel learn that stuff? He learned it all in Babylon, right? I'll stop yapping now. Let's head on to verse 8, 17:8.
If any case arises requiring decision between one kind of homicide and another, one kind of legal right and another, or one kind of assault and another, any case within your towns that is too difficult for you, then you shall arise and go up to the place that the Lord your God will choose. And you shall come to the Levitical priests and to the judge who is in office in those days, and you shall consult them, and they shall declare to you the decision. Then you shall do according to what they declare to you from that place that the Lord will choose. And you shall be careful to do according to all that they direct you, according to the instructions that they give you, and according to the decision which they pronounce to you, you shall do. You shall not turn aside from the verdict that they declare to you, either to the right hand or to the left. The man who acts presumptuously by not obeying the priest who stands to minister there before the Lord your God, or the judge, that man shall die. So you shall purge the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and not act presumptuously again.
Okay, so this is the section where Orthodox Judaism claims that you have to listen to their rabbis, and that you have to follow whatever their rabbis say. Okay, so if you're ever wanting to figure out why they've added all this stuff, this is the section that they use. The Catholics use the keys to the kingdom, and Peter, they twist the section of the keys to the kingdom where Peter recognizes who Yeshua is. They twist that section, and that's how they take authority. Okay, so the Catholics use the section where Peter is told that these are the keys to the kingdom. The keys to the kingdom are, it's not that Peter's the rock, it's that Yeshua is the rock. That's the key to the kingdom. Yeshua is the rock. Peter is not the rock. On this understanding, this rock, that Yeshua is the Messiah, the promised Messiah of the scriptures, the scriptural Messiah. So there's a false Messiah that's not a scriptural Messiah. The false Messiah does away with the commandments, doesn't come in the Father's name. The false Messiah doesn't come in the Father's name. Okay. Coming in someone's name means that you're coming in their exact representation or an image. If you were the king's servant and you were going out to sign documents in his name, you would put his stamp on the documents, right? And that you would be coming in his image. You had to be sent in the king's image, okay? So if a Messiah is coming in another name or in another image that is not the image of the God of the scriptures, right? not in the image of Yehovah. If a Messiah comes in that name and he does away with the commandments or he changes anything, he's coming in another name. He's coming in his own name, right? That's how you discern. And you're going to need that discernment in the days to come, because there is this growing confusion, right? And it is a false spirit that is growing. It's like this feel good false light. It's growing. So be aware that if they do not come in the Father's image, they are incorrect. So this section here, Deuteronomy 17:8 is a section that the rabbis use, say you have to listen to us, okay? We have to break down. We're going to go into kings, okay? So they had judges, right? A judge is appointed, and those judges, you had to listen to them. They were the judges, right? That is correct. They also had the Urim and the Thummim. I don't know how you say this, Urim and Thummim, which is the stones that would tell you judgment. If you didn't know the answer to a judgment through the Torah, the judge would consult the Urim and the Thummim, and then that Urim and Thummim would tell them the judgment. Okay, we don't have those anymore. The next factor to look at when we're deciding whether we're coming under the covering of rabbis, first of all, you should have said don't do that, right? But the second thing that we're going to look at when we look at this situation is when Solomon was made king, he became the judge. He became the top judge, okay? So our top judge is Yeshua, right? So say you were trying to consult and understand an issue, and you brought an issue, and you were, say you brought an issue to me and we were talking about it, and I didn't know how to answer. Okay, well, I would probably go to, a gentleman that knows the Torah really well and ask them and talk to them, and see what their opinion is. But we would consult Moshe. We would consult the New Testament, and we would consult Moshe, the Old Testament, the Tanakh, right? And the Torah. We'd consult that first. If we couldn't figure it out, right, then we'd pray, fast and pray on it. We'd take it to Yeshua, right? Yeshua is the king and judge now, right? So I think what we have to be just aware of, and like, so when people are trying to put their judgments over you and cover you with their different judgments, they're putting this kind of superficial layer, that there's superficial authority. The Catholic Church has done this too. They're putting this superficial authority over you. And I also want to say, maybe, on a Christian level, you would also have, like, the Baptist organization. You have to think our way, or you can't be a part of the Baptist organization. You have to think our way, or you can't be a part of the Methodist organization. What that all is them inserting a covering over you, right? That's not supposed to be there necessarily. Why did they get you to sign membership agreements? Sign a covenant. Oh, I agree to be a member. I agree to your doctrine. Covenant, right? You're signing a covenant. So be aware of that. So these, the layers there's a bug in here. They put the layers over you. And when you have the layers over you, then you're not consulting with the scriptures directly. You're not going to Yeshua. You're not fasting and praying. And, whenever somebody comes to me, it's like, oh, should I do this on the Sabbath? Should I do that on the Sabbath? I don't answer those questions. Why? Because it's not my place to put that covering over you. When people say, oh, what calendar should I follow? It's not my place. It's not my job to put that covering over you. That's for you to go to Yeshua and, fast and pray, talk to him, and figure it out. Figure out where he's got you on it. And everybody's going to be at a different place at a different time. That is walking in the garden with him. That's how we go back to the garden, right? I have like a note here. What did I say? Order of authorities and judges. If a matter is too difficult for you, too hidden. So when a matter is too difficult, it means it's too hidden. You don't understand the hidden part of it, right? You will go to the next level, right? So say somebody comes to me and I don't know instantly, the answer scripturally. It's not just something I've learned or been taught by Yah. what would I do? I would consult the script. We would consult the scriptures together. We would go through it together, consult the scriptures together. And then if we still didn't have a conclusion, we would fast and pray. And we would wait for Yeshua to show us the conclusion, right? Or I would go to, a gentleman that I trust and ask him what his opinion is and what his judgment is on it. And then we would fast and pray. And we would use all of those things to come to the decision. We don't have a formal judge system set up. And we have our nation's judgment system, like our nation's courts, which there's a lot of corruption breeding in those places still, right? But we don't have, so we have to look at it this way. So I'll give you an example. Somebody came to me the other day and they asked me, should they do sports on the Sabbath? And I thought about it, I didn't reply. And I think I might make a video on this, but so what the rabbis have been doing over the years is like making really strict rules so that everybody just follows these really strict rules. Like you can't turn on a light switch, you can't do this, you can't do that. Don't tear your toilet paper, whatever. No tearing on the Sabbath, so no toilet paper. You can't carry your keys out your door, stuff like this, right? Because what has happened over the years is they've taken this position. And so now every time somebody comes to you and they say, oh, well, what is your judgment on, can I carry my keys? If I go for a walk on the Sabbath, can I carry my keys with me so I can lock my door? No, you can't. You can't carry your keys if you are a Orthodox Jew on the Sabbath day, right? So they have key things that carry their keys for them, right? So the rabbis have taken this section and they've used it to put in all these stipulations and all these rules, right? And so when I was having this conversation with this gentleman from First Fruits of Zion, and he was saying we need to consult the Talmud, it's okay to look at the Talmud for direction. I implore that we should have discernment in our own lives enough that, and have enough Holy Spirit that we can figure these things out for ourselves, right? Can you figure out if it's work for you to put your keys in your pocket? Is that work for you? Or do you think that that's, and Yeshua went through these issues a lot, and Paul went through these issues a lot. So Paul didn't seem to, as far as I can tell, I don't study Paul a lot, but Paul seemed to say, use your good judgment, right? If you're in a place where you're gonna be a stumbling block to Jews if you eat a certain thing because it's not kosher, like to their kosher standards, don't eat it because you're going to be a stumbling block to them. Use your discernment. If you're in the marketplace, just don't ask if something's been offered to an idol. Just make sure that it's food, make sure it's not pork, but just eat it. Don't ask, right? Like I wouldn't go into a Chinese restaurant and I'm ordering chicken and there's no evidence of idolatry in the Chinese restaurant. I wouldn't ask them, hey, did you offer this chicken to an idol? I wouldn't ask the question. I would just assume that they haven't. But if I go into a Chinese or a Japanese restaurant and there's a big Buddha, I just walk out because I'm like, okay, I can't eat here. There's a big Buddha, right? Use your discernment, right? Whereas when we look at the oral tradition, it's like rule after rule after rule, and that becomes a heavy yoke because you're never thinking for yourselves. You're never walking in the garden with Yah. He will convict you if you are going down a bad path. He will gently convict you at first. If you continue, he will convict you stronger, and then eventually he'll bring judgment and tribulation upon you. If you continue to resist his Torah or his teaching or his conviction, he'll eventually just bring some judgment upon you, and then you'll wake up, right? Hopefully. So at the end of the day, we have a king on the throne. That's the issue, right? So if a rabbinical Sanhedrin thing starts to develop and they don't have our king on the throne, can we come under their covering? Can we come under their judgments? I don't think so, right? Because they don't have the same king as us. We have a king on the throne, which is Yeshua, right? So I don't know. We'll see how this all unfolds. I just want to give you guys some of the elements of it. I want to look at 1 Samuel 8 1 Samuel 8. Okay, so here's the Urim and Thummim. So as Ezra 2:63, Ezra 2:63. So what was happening in this section is that they could not prove their descent. They could not prove who was who, because a lot of the judges that were going to be in place, or the priesthood that was going to be put in place, was based on genealogy. They could not prove their genealogies because they had been dispersed for so long. So as they come back, they're like, well, we can't prove our genealogies. They sought the registration among those enrolled in their genealogies, but they were not found there. So they were excluded from the priesthood as unclean. So they were excluded, that they couldn't be in the priesthood because they could not prove their genealogies, right? The governor told them that they were not to partake in the most holy food until there should be a priest to consult the Urim and the Thummim. Okay? So we don't have an Urim and Thummim. And as far as I know, I don't know a lot about deep level Orthodox Judaism. I know that they track their genealogies pretty carefully, but we haven't had a red heifer, and they'll do the red heifer, right? I don't know if they've done it yet, but if it's coming soon. I would think that the red heifer could possibly happen over the fall feast if they haven't done it yet secretly. I wonder if it would happen over the fall feast, right? Anyway, so we don't have the Urim and Thummim. So you can look into those. We've talked about those before. So we don't really have the organized priesthood like we would. Now, what's interesting, on the day of Yehovah, when he returns, when Yah returns and everyone sees, he will determine the priesthood, and he will add even others to the priesthood that are not of the genealogy. This is written in Isaiah 66. He will add even others to them. So as far as judgments, so we have Isaiah 11:1. This is about Messiah. Okay, Messiah will do the judgments. He will be top judge. There will come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, a branch from its roots shall bear. The spirit of Yehovah shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and fear of Yehovah. And he shall delight, and his delight shall be in fear, reverence, and respect of Yehovah. And he shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear, but he will judge the righteous. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. So the Messiah, when he returns, will be the judge, top judge, right? 1 Samuel 8. When Samuel became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and his secondborn Abijah, and they were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, and turned aside after gain, bribes and profit. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations. But that thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to Yehovah. And Yehovah said to Samuel, obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, according to the deeds that they have done. From this day I brought them out of Egypt, and even to this day forsaking me and serving other Elohim, other gods, so that they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice, and only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. So they're allowed to have the king. They get Saul from this, right? So Samuel took all the words of Jehovah to the people who were asking for a king for him and said, he said, there will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots, to be his horsemen, and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of 50, some to plow the ground and some to reap the harvest and some to make implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cookers and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and the vineyards and olives and orchards and give them to his servants. And he will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and to his servants. And he will take your male servants and your female servants and the best of your young men and your donkeys and put them to his work. And he will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And on that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But Jehovah will not answer you in that day. So they're calling out for a king, for a leader to save them. Do you guys see the picture here? I just keep thinking about Trump, like how people are just like, Trump's going to save us. Trump's going to, put everything back in order. Sure, maybe, but these are the ways the king will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots, war chariots, to be his horsemen and to run before his chariots. That's all about. So chariots and horsemen, biblically, that's our tanks and our fighter jets now, right? They're going to war. If a king had acquired many horses, if a king had acquired many horses, it means that he was had a big army, right? So basically the cost of choosing a earthly king instead of making Jehovah your king is that you are now a slave to that earthly king. You're now going to pay your taxes and your tithes to that earthly king. He's going to put your daughters and your sons to work. He's going to take your sons and put them into war, right? That's the cost. But if we make Jehovah our king, he will heal our land, right? All right. I think that's all I wanted to cover. Let's go back. One thing to watch for, so there is that earthly, earthly kingdoms and that. So if we do have, I just don't think Israel would have another king unless it's Yeshua's return, right? Yeah, I don't see that we would have another king unless it's Yeshua's return. So going back to Solomon, it says here, he may not acquire many horses for himself or cause people to return to Egypt to acquire many horses, since Jehovah has said to you, you shall never return that way again. And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away and he acquire for himself excess silver and gold. So Solomon basically used this as a laundry list. This is what you're not supposed to do, but Solomon did all of these things. If you look, you can look up Solomon's stables. He had huge stables where he had all of his horses. It's called it's a mosque now, Al Marwani Mosque. So they have a mosque there now. But Solomon had these huge amounts of stables, like giant buildings, where he housed all his horses. And of course, we all know he had many wives. He had all of the silver and gold, right? So what we're told in the Torah for kings not to do, Solomon did all those things.
When you come to the land that the Lord your God is giving you, and you possess it and dwell in it, and then say, I will set a king over me like all the nations that are around me. You may indeed set a king over you, whom the Lord your God will choose. One from among your brothers you shall set as king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother. Only he must not acquire many horses for himself, or cause the people to return to Egypt in order to acquire many horses, since the Lord has said to you, You shall never return that way again. And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. And when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself in a book a copy of this law, approved by the Levitical priests. And it shall be with him, and he shall read in it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by keeping all the words of this law and these statutes and doing them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment, either to the right hand or to the left, so that he may continue long in his kingdom, he and his children in Israel. The Levitical priests, all the tribe of Levi, shall have no portion or inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the Lord's food offerings as their inheritance. They shall have no inheritance among their brothers. The Lord is their inheritance as he promised them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, from those offering a sacrifice, whether an ox or a sheep. They shall give to the priest the shoulder and the 2 cheeks and the stomach. The first fruits of your grain, of your wine, and of your oil, and the first fleece of your sheep you shall give him. For the Lord your God has chosen him out of all your tribes to stand and minister in the name of the Lord, him and his sons for all time. And if a Levite comes from any of your towns out of all Israel, where he lives, and he may come when he desires, to the place that the Lord will choose, and ministers in the name of the Lord his God, like all his fellow Levites who stand to minister there before the Lord, then he may have equal portions to eat, besides what he receives from the sale of his patrimony. When you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practices of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes, or interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or a charmer, or a medium, or a necromancer, or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. You shall be blameless before the Lord your God, for these nations which you are about to dispossess listen to fortune tellers and to diviners. But as for you, the Lord your God has not allowed you to do this.
Often people come to me and ask me about, like, you see those videos on different platforms, and these people like, I have a word from Yehovah, or well, they don't usually use that name. They usually say, I have a word from God or whatever. I avoid those types of messages. I avoid even like listening to them for a second. They remind me of in Jeremiah, where you have let's look it up. Jeremiah, do I have it written down? Jeremiah, where he's where you have like the 2 prophets talking. Oh, I forget where it is. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Put in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. So you have the one prophet is saying, all is going to be well, it's all going to be good. And then the other prophet, and then Jeremiah is saying, no, judgment is coming. And if you don't repent, if you don't turn back to his ways, then judgment will come upon you. And so that is like the standard. Like, if you don't repent and turn from your wicked ways and walk in his ways, judgment will come eventually. At some point, judgment will come, right? But if you do turn, then you'll walk in peace, right? So there's a lot of these kind of like messages that go out where people are like saying that they heard, but it's so odd to me, because they say this stuff, yet they're putting it on the internet. Thousands and thousands of people are seeing it, and they're like, it's a special message for you. No, because as soon as you watch one of those messages on YouTube, you know what happens? You start to get those messages constantly, because it's an algorithm, right? It's not that Yehovah is speaking to you constantly through these messages. What's happening is you've watched one, and now you're in the algorithm for these types of messages on YouTube, and now you're going to get all these messages, right? So it's borderline, telling fortunes and omens. It makes me think of this section, like, don't practice divination, don't tell fortunes, don't interpret omens. Be really careful about that stuff. Can Yah do those things and help you discern your path by confirming your path? Yeah. but I just don't think he does that on a mass scale. I don't personally think, but I don't want to blaspheme. If he's doing that, for people, that's great. But what I see a lot of times is like, especially when the, women kind of fall prey to this, you'll see like a video where the woman is saying, your kingdom spouse is coming, just type amen in the comments, and you'll see all these women like, I've been hearing these messages for 20 years and he still hasn't shown up, right? Like, yeah, a couple of people might get married out of the hundreds of thousands have seen that video, right? But there's probably more that are keeping this hope alive from these messages instead of learning the Torah, and instead of walking in repentance and walking in just solid grounding. They're going after all these, fortunes and omens and stuff. And that's, you know, that's a very shady place. They are an abomination to Jehovah. And I don't personally understand where the line is with that, because I've had Abba direct me on certain things and direct me on certain paths. So I don't understand where the line is on that and how he speaks to you, and at what point does it become divination and fortunes and interpreting omens. For me, I've kind of come back to just keep the commandments. He will direct you where you need to go. Be very careful about interpreting omens. Be very careful about, this and that. And pray for discernment on all things, right? I think Waywatcher said it really well here. He's like, people spend so much time focused on kind of selfish, vain pursuits like, oh, when's my husband coming? When's my financial breakthrough coming? Just do the commandments. Just do the commandments, do the right things, and what does Yeshua say? Seek first the kingdom, everything else will work out. That's what Yeshua says. So instead of being like over here looking at this, looking at that, I need a omen for this, I need an omen for that. Just seek first the kingdom, everything will come. It's fine. Don't worry so much. I think, like I said before, with the people like worrying about the constellations and the stars, and worrying about this and worrying about that. Can he give us these things to wake us up? Absolutely. Absolutely. He can make the moon red to wake us up. He's told us that he will do that. But if you're walking in the commandments, you're not going to be concerned. You're not going to be chasing after these things, because you've sought the kingdom, and he will add those things to you. So I would suggest, like, instead of focusing outward on all that kind of stuff, just refocus on, what commandments can I keep this week? Who can I bless? Who can I provide for? Who can I pray over? Who can I, focus on that. Focus on the good stuff, right? You're not going to go wrong. You will not be led astray if you are focused on that. Okay, new prophet like Moses.
The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. It is to him you shall listen, just as you desired of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, or see this great fire any more, lest I die. And the Lord said to me, they are right in what they have spoken. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers. And I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And whoever will not listen to my words that he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him. But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that same prophet shall die. And if you say in your heart, how may we know the word that the Lord has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the word does not come to pass or come true, that is a word that the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You need not be afraid of him.
So I want to add one more thing to this. In my experience with like Yah leading me down certain paths, he will show me certain things. Like he will bring people to me that have had very specific prayers with very specific symbols that only I understand. Because he has a language in which he speaks to you too, right? Like you all have certain symbols and things that he uses with you, and you understand what those symbols mean, right? We have the scriptural ones, but then we also have like really personal ones. And so often he will bring somebody to me with a dream or give me a dream, and that dream will lead me down the path, right? And you know, he will confirm it in different ways, and I think that is okay. I think, but what I really think is always bring it back to the basics of like asking him for discernment, listening to that still small voice. If somebody comes to you in the street, so this is something that Abba and I know, he knows about me. We've had this conversation. If somebody came up to me in the street and said, I have a word for you, I would refuse it. I would absolutely refuse. I would say, I do not want to hear it. Why? Because I don't know that person's walk. I don't know if they keep the commandments. I don't know anything about them. They could be a witch. I do not want to hear a word from a random person on the street. Okay. Abba knows this about me. He knows I will not even listen, because absolutely not. So what does he do? He will send a friend a dream, a very specific dream with a very specific something in it. And then that friend will say, I had a dream about you. He does this to me all the time because he knows I trust that friend. That friend walks with him. I know that friend's walk. And I trust that the symbol is very specific. It's not a symbol that everybody would know. And I trust that that symbol is very specific to me. Okay, so that's how I would discern these things. You know, I would never be like, oh, I saw this YouTube video. It came up on my YouTube thing. That was a word for me. I would never necessarily jump right into that stuff. I'm very cautious about that stuff because, you know, as soon as you watch that video, 10 more like it are going to show up, right? Now you're in a state of confusion. Now you're in a state of like, well, was this for me? You know, because it's an algorithm. It's not. Can he use that? I think, yeah, maybe he could. I don't want to blaspheme anything that he's doing in people's lives. Definitely, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I want to teach you guys how to discern these things. Don't just jump after something and chase after something just because somebody said something to you, right? I've seen that happen so many times. People get an idea in their head, and sometimes you get an idea in your head and it's actually your own flesh. It's like you're projecting. You know that thing when you buy a car and all of a sudden you see the same car everywhere, right? So if you were looking for something in your flesh that you really like, you're looking for a sign or whatever, all of a sudden certain things will start showing up. And so you got to be careful because he will answer you according to the idols of your own heart. And I've gone through this as well, where I had idolatry in my heart about something, and he had led me down a path according to the idolatry of my heart, not according to, you know, he had allowed that idolatry to lead me down a certain path, right? So you want to make sure you don't have that idolatry either. I hope that's helpful. There was a verse that I wanted to look at. Let's look at Isaiah 47. Isaiah 47, 13. When in doubt, just keep it out of your walk. When you're not sure, just go for the good things. Go for the simple things, feeding the widow and the orphan, spending time with him in prayer, reading the scriptures. When in doubt, go back to the simple basics. He'll make a way, either he'll show you the path. Isaiah 47:12. Stand fast in your enchantments and your many sorceries, from which you have labored from your youth. Perhaps you may be able to succeed, or perhaps you may inspire terror. You are wearied with your many counsels. Let them stand forth to save you. Those who divide the heavens, who gaze at the stars, who at the new moons make known what shall come upon you. Who at the new moons make known what shall come upon you. Behold, so the new moons, just so you know, Babylonians, the new moon is a marker for the new month, right? The Babylonians and a lot of the pagan nations, they were afraid of the new moons. They looked at the new moons as a bad omen. They wouldn't go to war on those days. They wouldn't travel on those days. They wouldn't do any of that on those days because they saw the new moon as a bad omen. Just like today we have the full moon and people see the full moon as a bad omen, right? So instead of seeking the counsel of Yah and just walking in his ways and building his kingdom, they're like, oh, we got to be scared. It's the full moon. People are going to act crazy, right? Behold, they are like stubble. The fire consumes them. They cannot deliver themselves. They cannot deliver themselves from the power of the flame. No coal for warming oneself is this, no fire to sit before. Such to you are those whom you have labored, whom you have done business with from your youth. They wander about, each in his own direction. There is no one to save you. It's that picture. They're just wandering all over the place. No direction. The direction is just keep the commandments. This is the end of the matter. Keep the commandments of God, right? What is that verse? The conclusion of the matter. Ecclesiastes 12:13-14. Let us hear the conclusion of the entire whole matter. Fear God, reverence God, and keep his commandments. This is man's all. That's it. That's all you got to focus on. Everything else will figure itself out. Everything else will just come to you when it comes to you. Okay? For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Okay, so this is the verse that sums up everything that I've been trying to say right here. This is the conclusion of the whole matter. Revere God, keep his commandments, seek first the kingdom, right? And then he will bring every work into judgment. So if you are keeping his commandments financially, you're doing everything, you're being generous, you're helping the widow and the orphan, you're doing all of those things financially, he will bring that into judgment. Judgment is good and bad. So if he brings a judgment upon you and he says, oh, I'm going to judge you on this matter, and you've been feeding the widows and the orphans, and you've been very, very good financially with stewarding your money, his judgment will be, you can handle having more. You can handle being blessed greatly because you have shown good judgment in keeping the commandments regarding money, right? If you are stewarding your relationships and you are being very good at having good friendships with people, you're being very kind to people, you're being a certain type of person, you're walking in kindness and the fruits of the Spirit, he will bring that into judgment. He'll bring that work into judgment, and he will provide for you a spouse. Someone will see the beauty of how you are and what you are doing, and he will provide that spouse for you. Okay. So when people are kind of like off trying to do this and do that, the conclusion of the whole matter is seek first the kingdom and you're good. It's fine. Don't stop worrying about, and this is what Yeshua was saying with all the, even the lilies of the field get clothed, right? He's going to take care of you. Just seek his kingdom, right? Even the lilies of the field get clothed. Stop worrying about it. Stop needing to put out fleeces for everything, right? Stop looking for answers for everything and just trust that he's going to bring it to you in the appropriate time, in the appropriate season. When he brings that judgment, that you're ready for a spouse or you're ready for financial whatever, he'll bring it in the correct season when you have shown that you can steward it correctly. Work on correct stewardship, and then you'll be given more. Does that make sense? Okay, back to it. Laws concerning cities of refuge were in Deuteronomy 19. Deuteronomy 19.
When the Lord your God cuts off the nations whose land the Lord your God is giving you, and you dispossess them and dwell in their cities and in their houses, you shall set apart 3 cities for yourselves in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. You shall measure the distances and divide into 3 parts the area of the land that the Lord your God gives you as a possession, so that any manslayer can flee to them. This is the provision for the manslayer, who by fleeing there may save his life. If anyone kills his neighbor unintentionally without having hated him in the past, as when someone goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, and his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, and the head slips from the handle and strikes his neighbor so that he dies, he may flee to one of these cities and live, lest the avenger of blood in hot anger pursue the manslayer and overtake him, because the way is long, and strike him fatally, though the man did not deserve to die. since he had not hated his neighbor in the past. Therefore I command you, you shall set apart 3 cities. And if the Lord your God enlarges your territory, as he has sworn to your fathers, and gives you all the land that he promised to give to your fathers, provided you are careful to keep all this commandment, which I command you today, by loving the Lord your God and by walking ever in his ways, then you shall add 3 other cities to these 3, lest innocent blood be shed in your land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance, and so the guilt of bloodshed be upon you. But if anyone hates his neighbor and lies in wait for him and attacks him and strikes him fatally so that he dies, and he flees into one of these cities, then the elders of his city shall send and take him from there and hand him over to the avenger of blood so that he may die. Your eye shall not pity him, but you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, so that it may be well with you.
Okay, so let's just get into context really quick here. They did not have a prison system. They did not have a system of prisons, right? In the Middle East at that time, and even in some places to this day, there's a thing called the avenger of blood. So if you accidentally killed somebody's brother and you didn't mean to, the other brother would come and try to avenge the blood and kill you, right? So that is what this is all about, okay? So if you had accidentally killed somebody, the avenger of blood would be looking for you. So instead of you just having to die, because it was an accident, you didn't mean to, you didn't hate him, you didn't murder him, it was an accident, you would go to the sanctuary city. And when you were in the sanctuary city, you would be protected and they couldn't kill you, right? That is what this is all about. Now, if someone intentionally killed somebody, now the death penalty was only on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. You can't have one witness and then have a death penalty. They would need 2 or 3 witnesses. So it would go through a court system. There would have a judgment system, and then on the testimony, this is where we get a lot of our judicial system to this day. Then they would enact the death penalty to remove the murderer from their midst, right? Very serious about it. I think that's all we need to cover with that. So when could the people come back out of the refuge cities? After the high priest dies, which I think is really prophetic. It's kind of a prophetic picture of Yeshua dying for us as our high priest. I think it's really prophetic that even if you did something horrible by accident and you've been put in this place of refuge, you've been cast out, you were outcast. When the high priest dies, you're brought back in. I think it's a really cool picture. Property boundaries. Deuteronomy 19:14.
You shall not move your neighbor's landmark, which the men of old have set, in the inheritance that you will hold in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. A single witness shall not suffice against a person for any crime or for any wrong in connection with any offense that he has committed. Only on the evidence of 2 witnesses or of 3 witnesses shall a charge be established. If a malicious witness arises to accuse a person of wrongdoing, then both parties to the dispute shall appear before the Lord, before the priests and the judges who are in office in those days. The judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness and has accused his brother falsely, then you shall do to him as he had meant to do to his brother. So you shall purge the evil from your midst, and the rest shall hear and fear, and shall never again commit any such evil among you. Your eye shall not pity. It shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for... When you go out to war...
Just a couple notes here, property boundaries. So they obviously didn't have maps with like to the same degree that we have with property boundaries. So they would have marking stones to mark the property boundaries. So if you owned a piece of land, you would have stones where your property boundaries were, okay? And so an evil thing to do would be to go out in the middle of the night and move that property boundary so that you could acquire somebody else's property. Does that make sense? Laws concerning warfare. Deuteronomy 20. I love these.
Against your enemies, and see horses and chariots and an army larger than your own. You shall not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when you draw near to the battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the people, and shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near for battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint. Do not fear or panic or be in dread of them, for the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you the victory. Then the officers shall speak to the people, saying, Is there any man who has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man dedicate it. And is there any man who has planted a vineyard and has not enjoyed its fruit? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man enjoy its fruit. And is there any man who has betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further to the people and say, Is there any man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go back to his house, lest he make the heart of his fellows melt like his own. And when the officers have finished speaking to the people, then commanders shall be appointed at the head of the people.
So this to me is a picture of the mindset you need to go into war. If you've just been married and you haven't had your honeymoon, right? You've just been engaged and you haven't had your honeymoon. Your head is your brain, your head is not in the game, right? If you're focused on your vineyard and you just planted a vineyard and you want to go take care of it, your attention is elsewhere. And it's this picture of like, you need to be all in the battle and not distracted, which makes me kind of think of some of the verses in the New Testament as well, when he's talking about people who didn't come to the feast. They didn't come to the wedding feast because they were distracted by the things going on in their lives. Makes me think about this as well. It's kind of profound. And then the last thing is, if you're fearful, if you're faint-hearted and you're not ready to go into battle, then stay back, because your faint-heartedness and your fearfulness will cause their other hearts to melt. There's this amazing story about this expedition into Antarctica. I forget what year it was. It was like the 1800s, but this man had gathered a crew and he went out into Antarctica to take this expedition of men to go try to explore the land. And obviously, especially in that time, that was very, very dangerous. And they ended up hitting an iceberg. They ended up having damage to their ship, and they had to survive on this ice island in their ship. And they had to figure out how to survive and how to get back to safety. They didn't have satellite phones, etc., right? And what was really interesting about the leader and the commander of this group, the captain, is he understood this concept. He understood that if there's any weak people and they're weak in heart, they're going to melt the hearts of the other people. And then if all the men's hearts melt, you're going to have a big mess on your hand. You have to keep your spirits up. If you're going to survive this thing, you got to keep your spirits up. So what he did is he actually took the two weakest men. I think it was two of them. The two weakest men, they had camps or something. They were building camps or something. I forget exactly how it played out, but they had tents that they were going to sleep in. He took the two weakest men and he put them in his tent. He's like, you're not going with the others, right? So he took them under his care and brought them under his care, so that if those men started to, waver and melt and get weak, he was in charge of keeping them in line. Because if he would have put those men, say, separated them and put them in two different tents, what are they going to do? You guys have all been around this. You've been around that, like, the whiny, miserable person who's a victim of everything, right? You've been around these people. What happens? They bring everybody down, right? All of a sudden, we're all victims and we're all sad and we're all miserable, right? I can't even. So, he took those people and he brought them into his tent to prevent them from going into the other tents and weakening and melting everybody else's resolve to survive this thing. So what happened? Some of them died. Some of them survived. They eventually took a lifeboat to a nearby island. It was very, I'll have to look it up and figure out the name of this mission. Maybe let's just find it, because if you guys want to look it up, it's super interesting. I don't remember the name of the. I think this might be it. Ernest Shackleton. 1913. Yeah, the ship was the Endurance, which is an interesting name. Yeah, look into that. It is such, I think there's books written on it, and I think there's a movie. Such an interesting story. Such an interesting story. So his tactic as a leader was keep the weak men with him so they're not weakening everybody else. Exact same concept. We see this with the good and the evil spies, right? The good spies came back and said, nope, Abba's going ahead of us. This is the exact same picture. Abba's going ahead of us. We're going to take this land. Everything's great. He's bringing us into this land. And what did the bad spies do? They came in and they're like, no, we're too weak. These giants are too big for us. And they melted the hearts of the other people. And this, so you will see the mirror of this in Isaiah 52, where it says, you shall not be afraid of them. Jehovah, your Elohim, is with you. He brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When you draw near to battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the people and say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near for battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts be faint. Do not fear or panic or be in dread of them. For Jehovah, your Elohim, he goes with you to fight for you against your enemies and to give you the victory. You'll see a mirror of this in Isaiah 52. We'll get there in a second. Okay, carrying on.
When you draw near to a city to fight against it, offer terms of peace to it. And if it responds to you peaceably and it opens to you, then all the people who are found in it shall do forced labor for you and shall serve you. But if it makes no peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword, but the women and the little ones, the livestock and everything else in the city, all its spoil, you shall take as plunder for yourselves. And you shall enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus you shall do to all the cities that are very far from you, which are not cities of the nations here. But in the cities of these peoples, that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance, you shall save alive nothing that breathes. But you shall devote them to complete destruction, the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded, that they may not teach you to do according to all their abominable practices that they have done for their gods, and so you sin against the Lord your God. When you besiege a city for a long time, making war against it in order to take it, you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. You may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Are the trees in the field human, that they should be besieged by you? Only the trees that you know are not trees for food you may destroy and cut down, that you may build siege works against the city that makes war with you until it falls.
Okay, so war is messy. People get triggered by this section. People that don't understand the reality of war and life. War is messy. So why did he say that you have to devote to complete destruction the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites? They would be doing child sacrifice. Their beliefs were child sacrifice. They were doing all sorts of witchcraft. They were doing all sorts of nastiness. They were likely Nephilim DNA, all of that stuff. So that is why. And it sounds, to someone who hasn't really looked into this stuff deeply, it sounds very like shocking. But you need to think about the cost of having these people. Think about how many children right now are being confused about their gender and their identity and, you know, their creator, and how these children are being abused and lost in this noise. Who is inflicting that on them? The Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Amorites. These dark entities, these dark cultures are inflicting that on them and confusing the innocent. They're hurting the innocent children. These cultures, this kind of stuff has to be completely eradicated, right? When Yeshua gets here, none of this, like people are like, oh, when Yeshua comes, everything will be, it's going to be messy. It's going to be a mess, because anything that is not willing to submit to him, and anything that is absolutely evil, is going to be completely destroyed, right? So if your belief is this prideful belief, you know, that it's okay to mess with children and mess with their child, like, it breaks my heart. Like, these children who have had their innocent childhoods stolen from them because of the stuff that you find on the internet, the perversion that's out there, the pornography that is out there, that is messing with people's minds, and they have been led down this path, right? It's going to have to get completely eradicated. It will be gone. There will be no lukewarmness on these issues anymore, right? When he gets here, it's all going to burn. As he gets here closer, it's going to keep burning until it's all gone. So that's why the utter destruction. That's why the complete utter destruction, because they absolutely refuse to not put their evil on everybody else. We've all seen this. They're evil. They just want to put their evil out there for everybody to be corrupted by. I don't know how many of you have children, but nowadays it's like every single thing has some sort of corrupted element to it. Every single thing. It's like you're trying to keep them from all, like, you want to know why people, you know, the Amish do their Amish thing and stuff. It's because there's just so much corruption out there. And I know there's corruption that gets in with the Amish community and stuff too, but you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like it's either you have to learn how to battle it, you have to learn how to have discernment. And this is my take on dealing with it with children, is teach them discernment, teach them spiritual warfare. Don't hide them away from everything, because when they get out and when they're an adult and they have to go into these situations, if they haven't built up their discernment to see what's going on, if they've been kept in a shelter and never been shown how the world actually works, you know, you do it age appropriately, right? You don't start when they're 6. You do it age appropriately. If you don't teach them how to battle and take them out there into the battle with you, when they go out on their own, they're not going to know how to battle, and they're going to be lost into all these doctrines. If you've never talked to them about these doctrines and the different stuff on the internet, and gone through it with them and explained what's going on, they're going to get lost in the sauce on it, right? Atonement for unsolved murders. Let's go. Deuteronomy 21.
If in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess, someone is found slain, lying in the open country, and it is not known who killed him, then your elders and your judges shall come out, and they shall measure the distance to the surrounding cities. And the elders of the city that is nearest to the slain man shall take a heifer that has never been worked and that is not pulled in a yoke. And the elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with running water, which is neither plowed nor sown, and shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. Then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him, and to bless in the name of the Lord. And by their word every dispute and every assault shall be settled. And all the elders of that city nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. And they shall testify, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it shed. Accept atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and do not set the guilt of innocent blood in the midst of your people Israel, so that their blood guilt be atoned for. So you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from your midst, when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord.
So yeah, there's something important about atoning for the innocent blood that's been spilled. Do I understand how that works? Absolutely not. It's interesting that there's the picture of the red heifer, or the picture of the heifer in there as well. Does it say red heifer? It just says heifer in there as well. But it does look like a picture of the red heifer. And the elders shall bring that heifer down into the valley with running water, which is neither plowed nor sown, and shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. So the red heifer too, the red heifer sacrifice found in Numbers, I think 19, is also a heifer that is never plowed nor sown, never pulled the plow. There's never been a yoke on it. So very interesting. Do I understand it? Absolutely not. Deep spiritual matters, I am sure, of atoning for the blood that has been spilled. Isaiah 51:12. Okay, y'all know me. I don't like it when they start at like a 12. That bothers me. Let's go read Isaiah 51, 1 to 12. 51. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, you who seek Jehovah. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who bore you. For he was but one when I called him, that I might bless him and multiply him. For Jehovah comforts Zion, he comforts all her waste places, and he makes her wilderness like Eden, her desert like the garden of Jehovah. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the voice of a song. Give attention to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation. For a law will go out from me, and I will set justice for a light to the peoples. My righteousness draws near. My salvation, Yesha, help salvation, has gone out, and my arms will judge the peoples. My righteousness draws near. My Yesha, which is the root of Yeshua, help salvation. So when you add Yesha to Yehovah, Yah's salvation, Yeshua, Yesha to. So listen to this verse. For my righteousness draws near, my salvation has gone out, and my arms will judge the peoples. The coastland, so his arm will be the judge. Root, just like Isaiah 11, the root shoots forth from the branch of Jesse, right? Who will judge the people. The coastlands hope for me, for my arm they wait. So the arm in Hebrew understanding, so the father's arm in the picture of Hebrew understanding is the son going forth. So the son is the picture of the right arm. So when you have like your firstborn son, he does the works of the father as the father can no longer do them, right? So the son goes forth as the father's arm to do the works of the father. Yeshua is Jehovah's right arm, correct, exactly. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look at the earth beneath, for heavens will vanish like smoke, and the earth will wear out like a garment. And they who dwell in it will die in like manner. But my salvation, Jehovah's salvation, Yeshua, will be forever, and my righteousness will never be dismayed. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. So what is the new covenant? The law written on your heart. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, in the people in whose heart is my law, Torah. Fear not the reproach of man, nor be dismayed by their revelings. For moth will eat them up like a garment, and the worm will eat them like wool. but my righteousness will be forever, and my salvation, Yeshua, to all generations. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of Yehovah. Awake as in the days of old, the generations of long ago. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the dragon? Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a way for the redeemed to pass over? And the ransomed of Jehovah shall return to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads, and they shall obtain gladness and joy, and their sorrow and sighing shall flee away. And their sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Groaning. I like that because like when I'm frustrated or tired, I always sigh like to myself. I don't do it to other people, but like when I'm just tired, that's what I do. So I won't be doing that anymore. I'm going to come out of the closet in a way and be like, so when I look at Yeshua, I see Yeshua as connected to the Father to such a degree that, you know, when Christians say that Yeshua is Elohim, yeah, he is. And if you understand Elohim, you get that. Like Elohim is all the encompassing, you know, his word, his spirit, all of the things, right? So when we look, I want to look at this section really closely. And you know, it's interesting that this section has been removed. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of Yehovah. Awake as in the days of old, the generations of long ago. The arm of Yehovah. Awake, put on strength. Okay, so what is the strength that he puts on? The arm of Yehovah. Isaiah 11. Let's go there and read it again. So what is the arm of Yehovah putting on? There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots, and his roots shall bear fruit. And the spirit of Yehovah shall rest upon him. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, and the spirit of knowledge and fear of Yehovah. And his delight shall be in fear, reverence, yirah, of Yehovah. And he shall not judge by what his eyes see, nor decide disputes by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he judges the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. Okay, so let's go back. Awake, awake, put on strength, Oz, power, might. Put on strength, power, and might. Okay, if you have my fall feast book, you've probably gone through this. If not, just go download it, link in bio. You could do that tomorrow or tonight. So let's just go through. Okay, strength, Oz, power, might. That is connected to the feast of Yom Kippur. Okay, Yom Kippur is when the high priest goes into the Holy of Holies and works on our behalf to provide the atonement. Okay, the high priest does it all. Okay, that's what the book of Hebrews is about. Okay, so you have the 7 spirits, and they're each connected to a feast. Power is connected to the high priest and Yom Kippur. Okay, so when Yeshua came to earth and put the 7 spirits of Yehovah, full measure 7 spirits of Yehovah, and brought them to earth in his human form, he became our high priest, right? So read this again. I hope you guys are catching this. Awake, awake, put on strength, power. That's connected with the Yom Kippur. Become that heavenly high priest, right? O arm of Yehovah. Again, the arm is the extension of Yehovah, the Son. Awake as in the days of old, the generations long ago. Now, notice this next section where it mirrors the book of Job. Okay, this is going to sound very much like the book of Job. Okay, when Jehovah was speaking with his word, I know it's hard to grasp. It's like so many layers to grasp, right? But with his word, he was speaking to Job and saying very much the same things here. Okay, so we're talking about the arm of Jehovah. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the dragon? Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a way for the redeemed to pass over? So he split the seas, right? Who split the seas? The arm of Jehovah. And ransomed from Jehovah, and the ransomed of Jehovah shall return and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads, and they shall obtain sadness and joy, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Okay, so now let's go back to the regular portion.
I am he who comforts you. Who are you that you are afraid of man who dies, of the Son of Man who is made like grass, and have forgotten the Lord your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth? And you fear continually all the day because of the wrath of the oppressor, when he sets himself to destroy. And where is the wrath of the oppressor? He who is bowed down shall speedily be released. He shall not die and go down to the pit, neither shall his bread be lacking. I am the Lord your God, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. And I have put my words in your mouth, and covered you in the shadow of my hand, establishing the heavens and laying the foundations of the earth, and saying to Zion, you are my people. Wake yourself. Wake yourself. Stand up, O Jerusalem, you who have drunk from the hand of the Lord the cup of his wrath, who have drunk to the dregs the bowl, the cup of staggering. There is none to guide her among all the sons she has borne. There is none to take her by the hand among all the sons she has brought up. These two things have happened to you. Who will console you? Devastation and destruction, famine and sword. Who will comfort you? Your sons have fainted. They lie at the head of every street like an antelope in a net. They are full of the wrath of the Lord, the rebuke of your God. Therefore hear this, you who are afflicted, who are drunk, but not with wine. Thus says your Lord, the Lord your God, who pleads the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken from your hand the cup of staggering. The bowl of my wrath you shall drink no more. And I will put it into the hand of your tormentors, who have said to you, bow down that we may pass over. And you have made your back like the ground, and like the street for them to pass over. Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion. Put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city, for there shall no more come into you the uncircumcised and the unclean. Shake yourself from the dust and arise. Be seated, O Jerusalem. Loose the bonds from your neck, O captive daughter of Zion. For thus says the Lord, you were sold for nothing, and you shall be redeemed without money. For thus says the Lord God, my people went down at the first into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them for nothing. Now therefore, what have I here, declares the Lord, seeing that my people are taken away for nothing? Their rulers wail, declares the Lord, and continually all the day my name is despised. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore in that day they shall know that it is I who speak. Here I am.
I just want to pause there for a second. You were sold for nothing, and you shall be redeemed without money. One sec. I don't know if this is going to work. I got to plug in my phone, but I don't have my tripod. I don't know if this will work. Please pray that my tripod appears. I don't know where it went. Okay. That seems to have worked. Okay, so notice this, you were sold for nothing and you shall be redeemed without money. So the redemption is, redeemed is what? Paying the cost. So Yeshua has paid the cost for our iniquity. He has paid the price, which is the wrath, right? There, everything, it makes me think back to when, when there's an innocent blood spilled on the land, there has to be an atonement for that. It's almost like there has to be, everything has to have an equal atonement in some way to bring the balance and the perfection back into place. So because we couldn't pay the cost of our sin, he had to do it for us, right? There has to be that balancing, that judgment, the judgment to come into balance. That's what I see when I look at redemption, right? Redemption is, so say you sold a slave into slavery. To buy that slave back out of slavery, you'd have to pay the price to pay the debt. So say the slave incurred a debt. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Say you incurred a debt that you could not pay, which we all have. We've all incurred a debt that we could not pay. The master could redeem that slave and set it free by paying the price, by paying the cost to set that slave free. Does that make sense? There is this portion here where, it talks about seeing that my people are taken away for nothing, the rulers wail, declares Yehovah. That is a picture of a possible rapture. I know lots of people say the rapture is, late theology or whatever. There is a picture here of a possible rapture verse, okay, in the Old Testament. This is the people who have made themselves clean. They're shaking off the dust, right? They're awake. They've put on their beautiful garments. If you go through the churches of Revelation, Sardis is the church that needs to wake up and sort out their garments. They have soiled garments on. So the trajectory is most Christians kind of stay around the midpoint of, I don't know how to explain this without showing you guys the whole thing. Go look so if you haven't gone through the churches of Revelation, I have a YouTube video. It's called The Seven Churches, and I go through. So Sardis is the church that's sleeping, right? They have soiled garments, okay? They haven't shaken off the dust. They have soiled garments, right? And they're sleeping. So what do we have here? Awake, awake. Wake up. That's why we blow trumpets, to wake people up. That's what trumpets is all about. Trumpets is linked to the church that needs to wake up. The feasts line up. Let me find it. We could talk about this for a second. It's important, so let's talk about it. I think I have a screenshot. Okay, let's use this one. Can I make myself small? No, I hate that. Can I make myself small? Okay, I'll put it on here for you guys too. Just a sec. I got to show everybody. I got two places here. Okay, so there you go. Power connected to Yom Kippur. This is Philadelphia. This is your royal priesthood church. And this is Yeshua having the full power, okay? Way too big. Sorry, I'm just getting it up for the people on Zoom so they can see what we're talking about too. It's a whole process getting this done, you guys. Okay, and if you have my fall Facebook, there's a whole section of the churches and all that in there as well, explaining this whole thing, okay? I'll bring this up for you guys, okay? So you have the seven spirits, the seven churches, and the seven feasts. They all line up. Trumpets is about wake up, you sleeping believers. You're not awake. Your garments are still soiled. You need to wake up and check your garments, okay? Yom Kippur is Philadelphia. So these people have checked their garments. They're capable of being a royal priesthood. When you get to kind of this point, you get to the royal priesthood point, and then you have the tabernacles. This says tabernacles over here. I'm pointing on my screen, you guys on here. So tabernacles is where you're under the covering of Yehovah and you're secured. And I've experienced a bit of this where it's almost like you're back in Eden. Like you don't have a lot of stress. Life goes pretty smooth. Any stress you do have, you kind of see where it's coming from, because it's usually from rebellion, or you need to get your house in order still a little bit. But there was this video that this Christian content creator had put out, and he was saying how like he just doesn't have that connection and that peace like he used to. The reason for that is he said he's been feeling like that for the last 3 years. Well, what has happened over the last 3 years? All of these people who understand that we're supposed to keep the commandments, that we're supposed to know about trumpets and know about Yom Kippur and how Yom Kippur works, and know about Sukkot and how Sukkot works, and how Christmas is the fake, false Sukkot. We've been telling them. We've all been going around telling them. And what have they done? They've stood up against us in rebellion, and their hearts got hard. Their hearts got hard in this process. And these are believers. They had the Passover lamb. They started to clean out the leaven. They understood the first fruits. They participated in the day of Pentecost, but they refused to go any further. Now, this up here is the fire, right? So we have the fires. We have the fires. Fire, red fire, is the coldest fire. The fire heats up and the color changes. So if you're stuck around here, is your fire really hot or is it kind of lukewarm? Right? The lukewarm gets spit out of the covering eventually. Eventually they get spit out into tribulation because they refuse to clean their garments right here. They refuse to wake up and clean their garments, check their garments. So this is Yeshua coming down and lighting up all of this, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So we are in this part of the process right now. Awake, awake, O Zion, right? We're right here. That's what this is connecting to, right here in the Torah portion. If you want this book, again, it's on my website. I have it all broken down with all the write-ups and stuff. What am I gonna do? There we go. Okay. So now when we read that again, it's going to hit different, right? I wanted to look at this too in the Hebrew 1 second. Wake yourself, stand up, O Jerusalem. Also notice in Philadelphia, what is Philadelphia called? New Jerusalem. They get the new name of the city. They're pillars in the city, right? Let me just grab it. Revelation 3. I know this is review for a lot of you, but we got to do it for the new people, okay? So Sardis, let's start with Sardis, okay? This is wake up church. The Sardis church is wake up church, your garments are dirty and you don't even realize it. This is the main church right now that they just, it's issue after issue after issue with them. I see it all the time. I see Christian pastors, they have issue after issue after issue. And I've even gone to them and said, you need to keep the commandments of God. This is talked about in 1 Corinthians. Paul talks about this. If you refuse to check yourself in regards to his commandments, tribulation illness, all of this stuff will come upon you. Okay. Got to check yourselves, you guys. Okay. So Sardis, I know your works, that you have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Wake up and strengthen what remains and is about to die. For I have not found your works complete in the sight of my Elohim. Remember then what you have received and heard, keep it and repent. If you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know the hour that I will come against you. Yet you still have a few names in Sardis, people who have not soiled their garments. What is soiling your garments? Walking in rebellion, refusing to look at Jehovah's statutes. Walking in sin and rebellion is soiling your garments. You have the garment of Yeshua on you, the covering of Yeshua on you, but you continue to walk in rebellion. You continue to go after the world. You continue to seek after false images, the images of Rome, the images that Jehovah has not given you in the scriptures. You refuse to understand that. And you know, when somebody comes to you and points this out to you, you rise up in prideful rebellion. Okay. And they will walk with me in white, for they are worthy. So there's some people in Sardis. So now he's talking about the actual individual places who have not soiled their garments, and they will walk with me in white, for they are worthy. The one who conquers will be clothed thus in white garments. So do we have to overcome and conquer our sin? Yes. There is that element of you need to conquer and overcome to be clothed in the white garments. You can't soil your garments constantly. And I will never blot his name out of the book of life. I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. He who has ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Revelation 3:7, and to the angel of the church of Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true one, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, and who shuts and no one will open, and no one opens. So Yeshua has the key of David, right? We can also wield the keys in his name. We can also wield the keys for people, but we have to be at this place. So a lot of people are like, well, why do I pray and nothing happens? And why, all this stuff. If you are not at this place where you understand this stuff in a deep spiritual level, where you understand that you need to be obedient, as you be obedient to the commands of Yah in spirit and truth, you'll be able to wield the keys more effectively. Okay. That has been my experience. And this is scriptural. I think it's Proverbs something 3 something talks about it. It's like your prayers, like if you're ignoring the Torah and you're refusing to take wise counsel to the Torah, your prayers hit a ceiling. They don't go anywhere, right? He doesn't hear your prayers. Your prayers become an abomination because you're refusing to walk in his ways. So why would he needs you to be part of the kingdom first, right? I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door. So now you have an open access to the throne room. Why does Philadelphia have an open access to the throne room? Because they've understood this. They've gotten to this place. They've woken up. They've cleaned their garments. They've prepared themselves. Now they can access the throne room, no problem. Okay. I've set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know you have but little power, yet you keep my word and have not denied my name. Keep my word and not denied my name. The two things. Revelation 14:12, same two things. Testimony of Yeshua, commands of Yah. Those are the two things. Those are the keys. That's the key, you guys. That's also connected to the keys to the kingdom when he gives them to Peter. Testimony of Yeshua, commands of Yah. Did Yeshua come in the name of the Father? And is he the Christ, the anointed one? Those are the two things you need to understand to have the keys. Your keys will not work as well. He does step in and provide, provision to a degree. But if you're turning completely in rebellion and you are completely turning in rebellion, your keys will stop working, right? Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews but are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. We won't get into synagogue of Satan today. I'll just note on it. It's like top tier Jesuit stuff, right? So you're looking at the Illuminati, Roman, deep Roman Catholicism, not your normal Catholic grandma that just doesn't know any better. But like the deep tier ones, top level Kabbalah, deep tier, top level, right? That's your synagogue of Satan, the people pulling the strings behind the scenes. Now, your normal Jewish grandmother who loves Yehovah and reads the Torah, that's not synagogue of Satan, you guys. Your normal Catholic grandma who's truly trying to figure it out, your normal Protestant grandma or whoever, grandpa, who's trying to figure it out and just doesn't get it and grew up in a time where they had less information, that's not synagogue of Satan, you guys, right? It's the top people that know what's going on and they're pulling the strings on purpose. They're doing it on purpose. That's your synagogue of Satan, okay? And it's in it's in Islam, it's everywhere. It's in politics, it's in, politics has a synagogue of Satan in it, right? The school system, it's everywhere, right? At this point. Where was I? Because you've kept my word about patient endurance. What's patient endurance? Endurance is described in Revelation 14:12. Testimony of Yeshua, commandments of Yah. I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world. The only church that is kept from the hour of trial is the church that understands what we're talking about, okay? They are the church. So there is the other church that is going to go through the trial, and they are also they're not told that they've done anything wrong. And I think that they will go through the trial in order to help others through it, help others understand it. That is Shmurna, right? I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, okay? So a lot of people are like, well, this already happened. Did that hour of trial come upon the whole world? Not yet, right? The hour of trial, it's coming on the whole world. So a lot of people are like, well, in 70 AD, that happened. The trial didn't come upon the whole world in 70 AD. It came upon Jerusalem. It didn't come upon the whole world. To try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my Elohim. He shall never go out of it. So he'll be able to go into New Jerusalem and be in the temple. And I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is Jerusalem. I will write on him the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. So he writes on us the city, the name of the city, and his own new name. He who has ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Okay, and so Laodicea, I think if you want to understand and picture Laodicea, what's really interesting about Laodicea is if you go there and you look at the archaeology, they had mega churches there. They had literal mega churches in Laodicea. They have, so in Laodicea are the footings of a church that was like 2 city blocks large. They had mega churches in Laodicea. So if you want to understand who Laodicea is, look at the mega church, right? That's your Laodiceas. They're so far thinking that they're good, but they're not good to like such a degree. This is your Joel Osteen churches. This is your, that's to that point. So anyways, if you want to go through that line by line, it's on YouTube, my 7 churches video on YouTube. Okay, so back to, I'm not going to go through Laodicea now because we're kind of in this Sardis moment. We're having a Sardis moment today because we're coming into Trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets. So we got to have this Sardis moment. So let's go back to that. Wake yourself, wake yourself, wake up, wake up. That's what Sardis is. Wake up, Sardis. Stand up, O Jerusalem. You who have drunk from the hand of Yehovah, the cup of his wrath, who have drunk the dregs, the bowl of staggering. There is none to guide her among all the sons she has borne. There is none to take her by the hand among all the sons she has brought up. 2 things have happened to you. Who will counsel you? Devastation and destruction, famine and sword. Who will comfort you? This is Sardis. This is Sardis being warned of what's coming. Stand up and be Jerusalem, okay? Because this is what's coming. Your sons have fainted. They lie at the head of every street, like an antelope in the net. They are full of wrath, the wrath of Jehovah, and the rebuke of your Elohim. Therefore, hear this, you who are afflicted, you who are drunk, but not with wine. Thus says your Adonai. Thus says your Adon, Jehovah. So that word there is thus says, it says, okay, so in English it says, thus says your Lord. The Hebrew word is Adon. That's where they get Adonai. And then they switched out Jehovah for the Lord, which I always read and say Jehovah. So thus says your Adonai, Jehovah, your Elohim, who pleads the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken from your hand the cup of staggering, and the bowl of my wrath you shall drink no more. And I will put it in the hands of your tormentors, who have said to you, bow down to me, bow down that we may pass over, that you may make your back, they have made your back like the ground and the streets for them to pass over. So this is a picture of the tormentors, those who are oppressing us, walking on our backs, using us to lift their own lives up and make their own lives better. He's going to switch that now. He's going to start to switch that. I've already seen it starting to switch. So he's going to take from our hands the cup of staggering. The cup of staggering, like when you're staggering, you're not on the correct path. You're all over the place. And so he's putting us all on the correct path. He's bringing us all to the correct path. Anyone who's paying attention, he's bringing us to the correct path, right? And we're not going to drink of his judgments anymore. He's going to put that on our tormentors, the ones who they've been walking on our backs, the ones who've been oppressing us, right? He's going to put it on them. 52:1. Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on your beautiful garments. Do you see the parallels with Revelation? O Jerusalem, the holy city, for no more shall come into you the uncircumcised and the unclean. We'll touch on that in a sec. Shake yourself from the dust and arise. Be seated, O Jerusalem. Loose the bonds from your neck, O captive daughter of Zion. Can I get a second witness? Yes, I can. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel 44. Why is it doing this? Ezekiel 44. It's about the Ezekiel's temple. So this is a good indicator that Ezekiel's temple is about the future kingdom temple. This is a really good indicator of that, actually. Ezekiel 44, verse 9. Some people debate that this is the temple that will be built. I think this has got to be, just from stumbling upon this today alone, this points to me that it will be, because Isaiah is pointing to it as no one will be allowed in there who is uncircumcised and unclean. And then it's repeated in Ezekiel. Ezekiel 44:4. Then he brought me by the way of the north gate to the front of the temple, and I looked, behold, the glory of Jehovah filled the temple of Jehovah. So the glory of Jehovah is not upon Jerusalem as it was the Shekinah glory, right? The Shekinah glory, when they were walking through the wilderness, they had the cloud and the pillar of fire. It doesn't exist like that. There's not a fire that comes down like Elijah called down to consume the sacrifice. That doesn't exist there anymore at this time. which makes me curious about what's going to happen if they decide to do this red heifer. It makes me really curious. I'm not going to proclaim that I would ever know what will happen when they do this red heifer sacrifice. But when they were doing the sacrifices in the temple, he would come down and consume the sacrifices. He would be there. There was a pillar of smoke and fire operating in the tabernacle, right? And when that pillar of fire moved, they would move with it. The glory of Yehovah filled the temple of Yehovah, and I fell on my face. And Yehovah said to me, Son of man, mark well, see with your eyes and hear with your ears all that I'm telling you concerning all the statutes of the temple of Yehovah and its Torah, laws. And mark well the entrance of the temple and all the exits from the sanctuary. And say to the rebellious house, the house of Israel, Thus says Yehovah Elohim, O house of Israel, enough of your abominations in admitting foreigners, uncircumcised in heart and flesh, to be in my sanctuary, profaning my temple, when you offer me my food and the fat and the blood. You have broken my covenant in addition to all your abominations. You have not kept charge of my holy things, and you have set others to keep my charge for you in my sanctuary. Ezekiel 44:9. Thus says Yehovah Elohim, Adonai Yehovah, no foreigner, uncircumcised in heart. So it's not that no foreigner, but no foreigner uncircumcised in heart and in flesh. All the foreigners who are among the people of Israel shall enter my sanctuary. But the Levites who went far from me, going astray from me after their idols, when Israel went astray, shall bear their punishment. They shall be ministers in my sanctuary, having the oversight at the gates of the temple and ministering in the temple. They shall slaughter the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before the people and minister to them, because they have ministered to them before their idols and became a stumbling block of iniquity to the house of Israel. Therefore, I have sworn concerning them, declares Jehovah, that they shall bear their punishment. They shall not come near me to serve me as priest, nor come near any of my holy things, the things that are most holy, but they shall bear their shame and the abominations that they have committed. Yet I will appoint them to keep charge of the temple and do its service and all that has been done. So the Levites were in charge of the outside cleaning up the blood, all that kind of stuff. That's what the Levites kind of had to do. The Aaronic priesthood, those were the Kohanim that could go near and do the sacrifices. Now we think about this. Okay, so who is the house of Israel scripturally? Okay, so the northern kingdom of Israel, they were divorced. Why? Because they were going up to high places and doing their sacrifices. They had their Asherah trees, and they were going up to the mountaintops to do the sacrifices and doing all this stuff. Okay. So they had gone astray and went after their idols when Israel went astray. So those who are ministering to the people and telling them to go after idols, telling them to go after false food, telling them it's okay to have food offered to idols and all this stuff, and teaching them and guiding them in that way, they will have no part in the priesthood in New Jerusalem. They might be there. They'll be outside. This brings us back to, what did Yeshua say? What did Yeshua say? Greatest and the least. This might be the picture of the greatest and the least, right? Matthew 5:19. I feel like we're stumbling upon so much interesting stuff. Like I didn't piece this stuff together before. It's just kind of interesting. That's kind of Matthew 5:17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish them, do away with them, but to fulfill them, fully preach them. So let's look at fulfill. What is this and where did it come from? Fulfill. Polero, make full, fill up, bring to a deeper fullness, bring fuller, make it, bring a fuller understanding, a deeper, fuller understanding. Not do away with, abolish is to do away with, but to bring to a fuller, deeper understanding. That's what polero means. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth have passed away, they haven't passed away yet, not an iota or a dot shall pass from the Torah until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commands and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So all those pastors who are out there, Sardis, I'm going to call them Sardis pastors, who are out there saying, it's okay to eat bacon. It's okay to, they're relaxing these commands over the people. They're leading people to relax even the smallest of the commands. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do that. We're under the new covenant when they don't understand what the new covenant is, right? The new covenant is all that stuff's written on your heart. You want to do it. You want to do the correct things. You want his ways. You want those things, right? So those Sardis pastors, I'm wondering if they're going to be the ones doing kind of like the messy outside work around New Jerusalem, but they can't enter in. How awful would that be for them, right? Like they were so close, but they stood up in rebellion because we've all gone out and told them, right? I've told several of them. I've commented several times on people's posts, like read more, study more. You're missing it. There's things that you're missing. You're not getting it. There's things you're not putting. So they've been told, they've been warned, right? So can you imagine that if they come into the kingdom, which I'm sure we'll all be blessed and happy and at peace in the kingdom, but they can't come draw really near and serve the Most High. They can't come right to New Jerusalem. They can't enter in fully to New Jerusalem because they were busy worrying about bacon. Instead of just telling people, no, don't eat bacon. Don't chance it. Why are you chancing it? They were so concerned with the love of people and having people love them that they were relaxing all these commandments over the people and telling it's okay, it's okay. And so what if they have to be there and like can't go all the way in? Interesting to think about. I'm wondering if that's the picture, right? Because in New Jerusalem, we see that Philadelphia can go in. Philadelphia gets their pillars in New Jerusalem. Whoever relaxes one of the least of these commands, so even the least of these commands, and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. I want to look up one more thing that's just coming to mind. I just want to read it. Matthew 23:13. I just want to read it. I haven't prepared this or anything, so I'm just going where my mind is taking me. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. For neither you enter yourselves or allow others who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte. And when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourself. What is the other one? This is an interesting one too. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, so that the outside may also be clean. I don't know if you guys know this, but in Orthodox Judaism, they baptize their dishes. So if you go and buy new dishes, you take them to the synagogue and you dip them in the water at the synagogue. You basically give them a mikvah, and you have to do that before you can use the plates and the dishes and stuff. Okay, we'll leave that there. Let's go back to the Torah portion. I'm sure we could go all day on this. Okay. Isaiah 52:7. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who bring good news, who publishes peace, who brings the good news of happiness, who publishes salvation, who says to Zion, your Elohim reigns. The voice of your watchmen, they lift up their voice. Together they sing for joy. For eye to eye they see the return of Yehovah to Zion. So every eye will see the return of Yehovah to Zion. Break forth into singing, you waste places of Jerusalem. For Yehovah has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. His people that he's redeeming are called Jerusalem. So it's like they're a city. What do you need to have a city? A people. People make a city, right? Yehovah has bared his holy arm before the eyes of all the nations, and to the ends of the earth, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation, Yeshua, of our God. So repeated, Yehovah has bared his holy arm before the eyes of the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our Elohim. Depart, go out from there, touch no unclean thing. So you need to know the difference between the clean and the unclean in order to touch no unclean thing. Go out from the midst of her, purify yourselves, you who bear the vessels of Yehovah. For you shall not go out in haste, you shall not go out in flight, for Yehovah will go before you, and the God of Israel shall be your rear guard, will be your rear guard. That mirrors the verses that I was pointing out in Deuteronomy when they go into war, when they're going into the warfare. He's going to go ahead of you. He's going to do the battle for you. Behold, my servant shall act wisely. Who's his servant? His branch. His servant shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up. He shall be exalted. So this is the part where the traditional rabbinical Torah portion ends. They stop here. So they stopped at verse 12. Okay. We're going to continue and read Isaiah 53. Behold, my servant shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up, and he shall be exalted. Notice the verse ahead of that. Verse 10. Yehovah has bared his holy arm before the eyes of all the nations, and the ends of the earth shall see the salvation, Yeshua, of our Elohim. Okay, a couple verses later, talking about his servant. Behold, my servant shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up. He shall be exalted. And many of you, as many were astonished at you, so people are astonished at the servant, his appearance so marred beyond human semblance. So his appearance gets so marred, it's beyond recognizing him as a human. His form beyond that of the children of mankind. So shall he sprinkle, Nazah. So shall he sprinkle, Nazah, splatter, as of blood. It's a verb, splatter as of blood. Some of her blood spurted against the wall. Sprinkle, splurred upon in ceremonial ways. Blood and oil, blood, oil, and water. You guys get it? Splatter, sprinkle. Nazah. So shall he, singular, him, sprinkle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him. For that which has not been told them, they see. For that which they have not heard, they understand. Who has believed what he has heard from us? And to whom is the arm of Jehovah been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised and esteemed not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken by Elohim, and afflicted. He was pierced, shalal, born through. From the root of sick and afflicted, became weak, etc. He was pierced for our transgressions, for our rebellion. So this is the word pisha. It's related, so transgression is related to rebellion. He was crushed for our iniquities. Iniquities is our perverse thinking, our backwards thinking. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. And with his wounds we are healed. All like sheep have gone astray. We have all turned everyone to his own way. So what is rebellion and iniquity? Perverse thinking, going our own way. So how do you reverse that? You go his way. You find his way and start walking in it, right? And Jehovah has laid upon him the iniquity, the guilt, the punishment, transgression of us all of us. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, and yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that was led to the slaughter, it's your Passover lamb reference, right? Like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, seized away. As for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. They made his grave with the wicked and with the rich man in his death. Although he had done no violence, there was no deceit in his mouth. So he was innocent. Yet it was the will of Jehovah to crush him. He has put him to grief. Him, not them. Some people try to say this is about Israel. Okay, so how is Israel pierced for our transgressions? How is Israel the him that has been put to grief? Right? It doesn't pan out. He has put him to grief when his soul makes an offering for guilt. So his soul, his life, his nefesh, the soul is what you do in this life. So your life work is what your soul is doing, right? That's why when people sell their souls, they're selling off their divine path in this life. So they're selling their soul in exchange for worldly goods, fame, whatever they want, right? So they're selling their soul. So Yeshua made his soul an offering for guilt. He made his soul the offering, his life's work, his entire life's work was to do what he did perfectly. That was his life's work. We each have something that is our life's work. And if you want to figure that out, you need to pray and ask Abba to start to show you it, right? We each have that. It's different for each of us. But he took his soul and he made it an offering for our guilt. Guilt, what's guilt? Oh, it's not coming up. He shall see his offspring, he shall prolong his days. The will of Jehovah shall prosper in his hand. The will of Jehovah shall prosper in his hand. Out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death, and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. There was this whole conversation, people denying Yeshua, and they were saying, where does it say in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, where someone can bear the sin of many? It says right here that someone can bear the sin of many and make intercession for the transgressors. So there was this whole group, and they were very argumentative, and they were like, oh, there's nowhere in the Tanakh that says you can bear the sin of another. It says it right here. I'll have to save that and make a video. I'll stitch one of their comments. I think I have their comments saved. Yet he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. It's right there. Okay, so after this, then you have Isaiah 54 to 56 is kind of this picture of the people being led to Mount Zion. So Isaiah 56 is that moment where they're all in Mount Zion and they're keeping his sabbaths, and they're even the eunuchs are there. Even the eunuchs are there keeping his sabbath. So it's those who have submitted their will to Jehovah. They are all there. Let's go to the gospel portion just to wrap up today. John 14, verse 9.
Jesus said to him, have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me.
I'm going to read the whole thing. I hate it when they cut off. It's just like an awkward, like they're having a conversation and you're like listening in halfway through the conversation. Like, that doesn't work. John 14. I don't know why they do them like that. Probably for length of time. They don't want to sit here like we do for 3 hours. John 14:1. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in Jehovah. Believe also in me. So believe in both of us. In my Father's house, there are many rooms. Curious about this word. There are many mansions, dwellings, abodes. Monet. In my Father's house, there are many monet, a stay in any place, abode, a dwelling, or in a mansion. If it were not so, I would have told you. Would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? If I go and prepare a place for you, then I will come again and take you to myself, where I am, that you may also be also, and you will know the way to where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Yeshua said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. But from now on, you do know him and have seen him. Yeshua is the expressed image of the Father on earth, so that we can see the image, so we can understand, because we have little human brains, right? We can't grasp. The Father's too big for us to grasp. We needed to see an image. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. Yeshua said to him, have I been with you so long that you still do not know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am the Father? I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. So he's completely submitted as a submitted vessel to the Father. That takes us back to Isaiah 11:1. The full measure was put on him. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Or else, believe on account of the works themselves. The works are in the Father's name. They line up with being in the Father's name. This is why I said, if you have a Christ or a Messiah whose works does not line up with what the Father's works say, which is all the stuff we've been going over today, then you might have a false Messiah. You've made a Messiah out of your own vain imaginations instead of checking the scripture to see that you have a Messiah that comes in the exact image and representation of the Father, right? This is where many are tripped up right now. They made a Jesus, they've made a Messiah who always reflects back to them what they think, instead of really looking at, okay, does the word really say this, or am I projecting, right? Or am I wanting it to say something, right? Am I really wrestling with it, right? Truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these he will do, because I am going to the Father. Whatever you ask in my name, I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it. So what's his name? Yah's salvation. Yah's salvation. So it's not, oh, Yeshua, I want a really nice car in your name. His name is Yah's salvation. Are you asking in the name of showing Yah's salvation, walking out Yah's salvation? If you are asking in his name, which is Yah's salvation, it means that you are applying Yah's salvation to the process. Okay, so it's not about fickle prayer, that is vain prayer, asking for this and asking for that. It's about prophesying his salvation to the people, right? Does that make sense? If you ask anything in my name. So in this understanding that we are bringing about salvation and his correct image to this earth, that's the name that you are asking in. You're not asking for vain things and just using his name in vain to get those vain things. That is not what he's saying here. Does that make sense, you guys? If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper, the Ruach, to be with you forever. Even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you. Okay? Spirit of truth is to lead you to all truth. John 17:17. Sanctify them in your word. Your word is truth. If Yeshua is the word, whose commandments are we supposed to be keeping? If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Yeshua is the word made flesh. They're all his commandments. The front of the book, the back of the book, they're all his commandments. All right, let's stop there. Oh, actually, let's keep going. John 14:18. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. That's interesting. Because I live, you also will live. And in that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. We're all in it together. Whoever has my commandments and keeps them, it is he who loves me. It is he who loves me, and he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him. Judas, not Iscariot, said to him, Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world? Yeshua answered to him, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and will come to him and make our home with him. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words. And the word that you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me. These are the things that I've spoken to you while I'm still with you. But the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all that I've said to you. Peace I leave with you, peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. You've heard me say, I am going away and I will come to you. If you loved me, you would have rejoiced, because I am going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I. And now I have told you before it takes place, so that when it does take place, you will believe. I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has no claim on me. But I do as the Father has commanded me, so that the world may know that I love the Father. Rise, let us go from here. All right, we'll stop there. I'm going to thank you for coming again and joining me, obviously, in this study. I hope you have enjoyed it. All the previous recordings are on YouTube. There are also recordings plus workbooks on the discipleship training, homework, Torah family. I will, on the YouTube, when I post this onto YouTube, I'll link it in the comments. Torah family, no hide laws. Look up that video. Torah family. Steve from Torah family, no hide laws. Look up that one. You need to be aware of that. Number 2 piece of homework. What was the other thing? Oh, if you want to learn more about the churches of Revelation, on my YouTube is a video called The 7 Churches of Revelation, where I've gone through all of it. Third part of homework, download the feast guidebook this week if you want. All the stuff, kind of a lot of the stuff we went over today is in there. So it'll help you. All right. Let's stop the recording.